Hello there, and welcome to Ask MandRproductions episode 215, the series where I answer your questions. If you have a question you want to answer in next week's episode, leave it down in the comments section below and hit the like button while you're at it. And I think if you're on like the mobile app, it has a new celebratory "you liked this video" thing, but if you dislike the video, it doesn't do anything. It's not me asking, it's YouTube just nudging you to do the right thing. Anyway, I'll talk more about this later, but this week I privated/deleted 600 videos plus from my YouTube channel, which is pretty crazy, so I'll explain that coming up. But first question from Agree Bricks. He says, what is the most repeated/reissued vehicle in LEGO Star Wars? And this is a bit of a tricky question to answer because it depends on the parameters you put on the question. So I went through and tallied it up for you. I did not include any mini models. I did not include any promotional models that were only available, Comic-Con or anything like that. So that stuff I left off the table. Only sets that came in cardboard boxes and were at the very least available on LEGO.com. First up, the Slave 1 has had 7 different models. Well, actually, the Slave 1 has had 6 models. Boba Fett Starship has had 1 model. So it depends on how you want to count it, really. The TIE Fighter has had, I think, 9 different renditions, plus it has had 2 sequel trilogy versions, so it's kind of like, it's still the same thing, really, it's just in a slightly different color, and that's why I added it on as part of the count as well. The X-Wing has had 10 different regular X-Wing versions, plus 5 sequel trilogy versions, putting it at 15, which is by far going to be the highest on this list. But just some other quick stats for you. The Millennium Falcon has 10 regular and 2 sequel trilogy versions. The Luke's Landspeeder has only ever been released 7 times. That's including the UCS one coming up, although the Luke's Landspeeder gets the brunt of the memes, so kind of interesting when you see the actual stats behind it. The Snowspeeder has been released 9 different times in boxes, and then the 2 prequel ones that I kept count of, since they had been around since 1999 as well, were the Naboo Fighter and the Sith Infiltrator, which were released 6 and 5 times respectively. However, the Naboo Fighter will be getting a 7th, technically, with Mandos and 1 Starfighter, so it just depends on how you want to count it. But it appears that the X-Wing is far and away the most repeated set, especially if you're counting those sequel trilogy versions. If you're not and you're only counting original trilogy, then the X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon are technically tied, which makes sense because the X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon are pretty ubiquitous with Star Wars. Crofty's Brick Studios says, is the C-3PO with dual molded legs and side leg printing real? If so, I hope they continue this with clones and most other figs. Well, I wouldn't get your hopes up about more Star Wars figs, especially prequel ones, having side leg printing and dual molded legs and all that snazzy stuff. As far as I can remember off the top of my head, might be wrong, but the last figure in LEGO Star Wars to have side leg printing was Han Solo in Cloud City, so this is not something that happens often. The version that we see in the Death Star Trash Compactor set is very similar, however, he does not have the dual molded silver leg. They just kind of half-heartedly printed the silver on, so the C-3PO with the dual molded silver leg is actually going to be in the UCS Luke's Landspeeder as an exclusive figure for that set. And I should say this now, it looks like the Mace Windu in the Republic fighter tank is also different from the Mace Windu in the Republic gunship. So thankfully we will have still, we're clinging on to it, that exclusive Mace Windu for the gunship. So there's still a reason to go out and buy the gunship minifigure wise. That's still so dumb. Anyway, yes, that C-3PO is real and it is definitely the best C-3PO to date that isn't the gold one. Anyway, moving on from basketball, there's a picture of basketball for his picture. It makes sense. It says, what do you think of the Bionicle's return for the 90th anniversary set? I feel bad for the Bionicle fans. Not that Bionicle necessarily has shown that it's a viable theme and deserves a set in that way. Like, it clearly doesn't sell. They tried to bring it back and it completely flopped. But my God, that is an ugly looking little Bionicle thing. Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter what I think because I don't really care about Bionicle, but I do feel bad for my buddy LJ Johnson, who had reviewed every LEGO Bionicle set and did this whole thing of like, I have owned them all and I own all the ones that will ever exist, and now his video is outdated. Silas says, do you think the UCS Slave 1 is worth it for $500 to $600, money not being an issue? 100%. The UCS Slave 1 is a probably top 5 LEGO Star Wars set of all time. I think that pretty much everyone and their mother wants to own one, and hence the price of it has gone up so much. And I saw a post recently on the LEGO Star Wars subreddit of someone that had a sealed one, which I assume is what you're looking to buy, and they said, will I regret this if I open it? And I think it's a really interesting concept of like, oh, you know, you have this very valuable thing that costs $500 or $600 sealed in the box, but as soon as you open it and you build it, now it's worth a little bit less, maybe like $450, whatever. It's not actually that substantial of a downgrade in value, but nonetheless, it still is a downgrade. And there's definitely an appeal to some people of having this pristine sealed box that's like just really cool to them, including myself. And so what I would say if you spend this $500 to $600, and the same advice would apply to the person on Reddit, although they might not be watching this, especially you say money not being an issue, it seems like you might have the little extra cash too to throw at something like this. Get something to protect it. Buy a nice display case or a shelving unit that actually, you know, closes off from dust, and make sure your Slave 1 stays pristine, because when a set like that gets dusty, especially that old Slave 1 with the brittle red, it can be a problem if you want to clean it. So you don't want to have to try and clean that thing, and just keep it pristine for as long as you can by getting a nice shelf for it. Fem Funtime says, with the success of the Titanic, I think LEGO should do a different famous ocean liner every year in the same scale. There's a slight problem with in the same scale, but I would absolutely love this. I just love boats in general. I own the LEGO Maersk and I own the LEGO Titanic, and I could definitely see myself being interested in adding more to that collection depending on what they did. I would certainly love to see them do some of the more recent Royal Caribbean ships, like the Oasis of the Seas type of thing, or I don't know what all the new ones are called, but there's definitely some really cool, really big cruise ships modern day that would be really neat to see LEGO tie in. And LEGO did recently open a LEGO store on a cruise ship, which is just really dope. Like 13-year-old me is going wild. That's the last time I think I was on a cruise. Maybe I was 14 or 15. It's been a while, but I need to go back. Unfortunately, I think the cruise ship with the LEGO store sails out of Europe, so yeah, it would be a lot more convenient if it were like Port Canaveral right by my house. Anyway, the only thing with your question is you say in the same scale. If LEGO were to make a cruise ship modern day, like the Oasis of the Seas, in scale with the LEGO Titanic, it would cost like 3 to 4 times the price. And I think it's a surprising thing for a lot of people. The Titanic isn't that big. It's big. Like if you were on it, it's a big boat. Don't get me wrong. But when it's compared to the modern day massive cruise ships, it looks like a joke. I'm gonna be honest. The Titanic it's like for 1912, yes. For 2022, not so much. Like it would be, you know, it's a small cruise ship by today's standards, and that might be pushing it, you know. So yeah, the Titanic you can't do things to scale with it necessarily, and LEGO's never been about that. They don't scale things typically across from one model to another because it just doesn't work, and this is a great example of why. But I would love to see more cruise ships in a similar size as the Titanic. Chris has a great comment that ties into last week's question about feeling awkward being tall, and he said that the only time he gets looks is during the height of the pandemic when he was feeling the CMF bags in Target. And like, oh my god, yes, 100%. If you are standing in a store feeling CMF bags, I don't know why it didn't come to mind last week, but it is the only time that I feel self-conscious about buying LEGO. It's just like you're standing in the store, you're feeling the bags, and I haven't done it in a while, but man, it can feel awkward at times, especially when people keep walking by, and it's like, sometimes I've stood there for like 20, 30 minutes trying to get a whole series. I think when the Ninjago movie wave came out, I just stood at the end cap of a Target, and I was like, gotta find all these, because I can't just buy more than I need, because like, I can't have enough money, so I was like, gotta figure out exactly which is which, and you know, it just takes time, unfortunately. So yeah, that is 100% the time that I would feel self-conscious. So I get it. It's just like you have to like live with it at times. Anyway, he did add on another question. He said, did you get anything from LEGO for spearheading the 501st Battle Pack campaign other than several free copies, that is? So yeah, they gave me 3 free copies, one of which I gave away to a fan. The short and simple answer is no, I didn't get anything. Didn't feel like I would ever get anything. I mean, the very least that I ever wanted out of it was an interview with the Battle Pack designers, and they couldn't even give me that. They gave it to a blog, of course. So that all that stuff always rubbed me the wrong way. And then as recently as like 2 or 3 days ago, the guy who runs the LEGO Ambassador Network just can't help himself. He is making fun of me for buying the set that I am the catalyst for the reason it happened. It blows my mind that a genuinely somewhat high-level LEGO employee thinks that the reason the Australian and New Zealand region still doesn't have 501st Battle Packs is because of fans like myself that bought 7 18 months ago and took a really cool picture with it. I can't imagine why I would have taken that picture. I don't think LEGO understands. The words you're seeing on screen now are from the head of the LEGO Ambassador Network. This mindset is so messed up and wrong, because this is in reference to the File First Battle Pack. For those of you that don't live in Australia and New Zealand, you've probably heard me talk about it a little bit because it's still pertinent somehow, that Australia and New Zealand, the File First Battle Pack has been retired since the end of 2020, or a single LEGO.com restock, I believe. But other than that, it has been completely gone off shelves. And you have the head of the LEGO Ambassador Network blaming me, MandRproductions, for Australia not having 501st Battle Packs. And this guy, who is supposed to work with influencers and help them promote LEGO's product, seems to think that the promotion of their products is a bad thing. And I have been noticing, because I know a lot of people, that the general vibe of the LEGO Ambassador Network recently has changed a lot. The higher-ups at LEGO, and maybe even the LEGO designers, probably genuinely wonder why everyone hates the LEGO Ambassador Network, because it just gives you free things. Everyone should be happy. But LEGO does not have the proper people in place as like that buffer to actually like have good human relations. So they should probably work on that. I would highly suggest taking a long hard look at who you actually have on the front lines for your company, because it's not working. MX Creation says, was your channel really successful when you started out? And the very easy answer to this, and for a lot of people, is no. The only way it would be successful when anyone starts out is if you are making like just top tier content, which most people when they start out aren't.
I've made a video in about a month. I think it's been exactly 1 month today. It's April 4th. Last time was March 4th. And truthfully, I'm really sorry because I haven't done anything, which means I'm not getting any viewers or any subscribers either. So it's bad for me too that I haven't made a video. I mean, I've been getting a steady flow of subscribers, but it's slowly, the number every day is like dropping. I get about 1 to 3 a day. So pretty nice. Ryan's clones, no touching. Yeah. Oh yeah, on the cruise I went to Mexico and got sunglasses. Yeah, you can't see my face, that's right.
Or if you are making good content and you have someone bigger that's going to shout you out and really help drive traffic to you. Otherwise, everyone starts at zero, and so did I over 10, 11 years ago at this point on this particular channel. And to give you an idea, it took me about a year to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. It took me 4 more years to get to 10,000. Following that, it took 3 more years to hit 100,000. And of course, here we are about 3.5 years later at about 450,000, which is freaking incredible. But this ties into what I said earlier about deleting a bunch of my early videos. They were bad. And while most of them have been scrubbed from my channel at this point because they're now private or unlisted, a lot of, and by a lot of, I mean literally all of my early videos were just atrocious. They were awful. They are not watchable today.
Newer, better videos are coming. I promise you. No more of this iPod crap. This iPod, I used it today because this is important to me. I have 394 clone troopers, guys. So I think that puts me at 4th. So I guess that's good and bad.
If you ain't first, you're last.
I mean, basically, I was a 12, 13-year-old kid just uploading, talking about my Legos, and I would talk to my friends about them too, and like we would have Skype calls that I would with the people I would meet online, and that was like the extent of it. I did update videos. That was the bread and butter of my content for 3 or 4 years. You know, just update videos.
Second turbo tank is pretty cool, and actually with the turbo tank, you guys are gonna want to check this guy out. Blaine's World. It was only $60. 100% complete too. And he actually sent me baseball cards with the order, so I thought it was actually pretty cool for him to do. So go to Blaine's World on Bricklink.
And then Drop Test came along in 2012. I started that. That was kind of a main series for me. That's something that I always looked at, you know, as a launching pad for my channel. Although Drop Test was a relatively short-lived thing now in the history of my channel, going from like 2012 to maybe 2014 or 15 as like a mainstay series. I might have reached 10,000 subs and then like I moved on to other things. Like Drop Test isn't as big a deal to my channel as I used to think of it as. But it was something that kind of, I guess, helped me grow early on. It's something unique that other people weren't doing with LEGO videos, and even though the videos were god-awful by today's standards, I think they were still terrible at the time, they still helped me grow somewhat of an audience in the early days, and I'm sure a few people have stuck around since then. But essentially, I went through my entire YouTube catalog the other day. I spent about 3 hours doing this, and I've done a few things that are gonna change the way you kind of view my channel going forward, and it's kind of interesting because it should help my YouTube statistics on the back end, which isn't something you guys see or are probably concerned with. And so what I'm gonna be doing now is I'm gonna be unlisting outdated LEGO Star Wars rumor videos, and they will all go in a playlist that'll be on my channel under the playlist tab. And all these outdated rumor videos will just be kept here because they're outdated. All of these, as of like 2 or 3 days ago, were publicly findable on YouTube. And they were just tanking my YouTube analytics. Like really bad click-through rate, really bad watch time. None of them were making any money, obviously, because they're old and outdated, so hardly anyone's watching them. And when they do, they don't watch them for very long. You get the point. So all like 90 of these videos I had to find and make them unlisted and put them in this playlist. And then while I was doing that, I found like another 500 videos and I'm like, yes, these are genuinely terrible YouTube videos that nobody in their right mind should want to watch, and nobody was watching anyway. They were like, 2016 reviews, and they would have 5,000 views on them. That video is clearly never gonna be going anywhere. And they're also Lego sets that I eventually plan to buy sealed and do reviews of with an actual good setup. But no, my channel was not successful when I first started out, and for anyone starting on YouTube, that is the very typical way it goes. You're not gonna be successful when you start. It sucks, I know, it's hard to hear, but you kind of have to grow into it, and that's certainly what I did. I mean, I started from the absolute pits. I mean, I think anyone starting today is much better than even me of 5 or 6 years ago. My videos were still pretty rough back then. Final thing about this, I have uploaded on my MandR Productions channel in its entire history about 26 or 2,700 videos. I have privated like 16 or 1,700 of them. There's only like 1,000 or 1,100 videos up on my channel of the 2,600 that I've ever uploaded. So I really, you get the idea of how much bad content I made and how much practice I got making stuff, and slowly, and I mean slowly, improving at the craft to get where I am today. Andrew6077 Red Stud 2 days ago says, Ryan, I'm going to ask you a question that's never been asked before. Do you think there is going to be a Jango Fett Slave 1? And I think this is a really interesting philosophical question. I mean, I think on one hand, there's a chance that someday LEGO might release another Slave 1. It could exist. But on the other hand, there's a chance that LEGO doesn't release a Slave 1 in the future. And so it's really hard to know if LEGO will release a Slave 1 or if they won't release a Slave 1. And it really confuses me because they could do it, but on the other hand, they could just not do it. And so that's where we end up with our answer for that question is, they could, maybe one day, someday, not or do make Slave 1. The Chogger says, it seems like every time a leak comes out, the next day we see official pictures. So is it LEGO who controls their showcase date, or is it the leakers? No, it is LEGO. LEGO sets a date, and then usually at some point before that date, and there's a multitude of way things leaks, but this is just one way. So let's say the Republic fighter tank reveal is going to be this Friday, and so a week before that, retailers will get pictures or something. I'm just kind of guessing, right? And sometimes they accidentally upload them on their websites, which of course the leakers just take a screenshot. They're not technically leaking anything, if that makes sense. But sometimes they come from other sources, like LEGO Ambassador Network members will take pictures of their boxes and send them to people, and then the people will put them on the internet, and then the LEGO Ambassador Network people never get in trouble, but that's what happens sometimes. So you just never know. It comes from a multitude of different places, and yeah, but the reality is LEGO has a date, and they always stick to that date. They don't reveal things before that, even if they leak anyway. Trump says, is there anything to the 90th anniversary castle set rumor? There absolutely is. In fact, I believe there was a render. I don't remember I think it was from the DeLorean reveal, and they went to medieval times, and behind them you can see a castle there, and that castle is apparently the 90th anniversary LEGO castle, and it seems very likely that might be the set, because why wouldn't it be? It's a great way to kind of tease it. And LEGO obviously doesn't have any other IP people invested in their LEGO medieval times castles, so they can just show it freely. So what we're seeing here could very well be the castle. I don't remember how much money the 90th anniversary set is supposed to cost, but let's assume it's like $200 or $300, and this makes perfect sense. This would be a great way for LEGO to kind of segue back into possibly doing a new medieval castle theme for 2023. It'd be a great way to start that sort of thing. It's far from a guarantee that it will turn into its whole full-fledged theme, but Nexo Knights is pretty far in the rearview mirror at this point, so much so that I'm sure half of you guys are like, what the heck is a Nexo Knight? But the next LEGO castle theme could be around the corner, with this being kind of the spearhead for it. So I would be totally down for that. And at the very least, we're getting a big castle set, so that's cool too. Roberto wants to know how to buy a Betrayal at Cloud City set, but still be able to eat for a month. Dude, it's unfortunate, but I just want to be real with you. It costs what it costs. That set is super expensive, and you're probably not going to find it for cheaper than $750, like you say, especially brand new in box. You might be able to get a used one. I would suggest maybe checking your local Facebook marketplace. Check in on eBay as frequently as you can. Maybe someone will list it for less than it's worth, but the reality is it probably will be very difficult for you to find one for anything significantly cheaper than what market value is. That's just the way the LEGO market tends to be. So that's all the time I've got. If you have a question you want to answer on next week's episode, leave it down in the comments section below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're on our crusade to 500,000 subscribers. And leave a like if you enjoy and want to see the little fireworks on your phone. Peace out.